Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Today's video is all about the life and legacy of King George I. He was born on the 28th of May in 1660. The future king's mother was Sophia of Hanover, so a powerful German noble at the time, and young George's father was Ernest Augustus, the Elector of Hanover. Now you may have heard the word Hanover pop up a few times, and that is because the young George, the future King George I, was actually born in Hanover, in Germany. He was a cousin, or a distant second cousin, of Queen Anne, and he was the great-great-grandson, so a direct link in relation to King James I of England. So although he had connections with members of the royal family through their heritage, he was actually born in Germany. Now he married Sophia Dorothea of Celle in 1682, and here we can see them getting married when he was 22 years old. He married Sophia. However, only around 14 years later, in 1694, they were divorced. However, during these 14 years, they did have 2 children. And those 2 children were the future King George of Great Britain and a daughter, Sophia Dorothea of Hanover. So both named after their namesakes, George and Sophia, their 2 children. Now there was also 4 other children of George I. These were all illegitimate children that he had with mistresses rather than with a wife, as we can see there on screen. Now then, Queen Anne was the ruler before George I of England, or the monarch I should say, and she passed away in 1714. Then the throne was passed to King George I, as he became King of England on the 1st of August in 1714. And he was crowned at the coronation on the 20th of October in the same year of 1714, and here he is in his coronation robes, after becoming king, and of course he was crowned at the coronation at Westminster Abbey, as we can see there. Now then, now that he's become king, we'll do a timeline for the key events of George I's reign. Beginning in 1714, when George I's Parliament was a major overhaul and the Whig Party were in, most importantly, the famous Robert Walpole gained lots of power within Parliament. Now in 1715, the first coins of George was minted, as we can see there, 1715 guinea here, and as you just saw previously, these are all oversaw by the Master of the Mint at the time, who was Sir Isaac Newton, ensuring the quality was the best in the world for British coinage and standards. In 1715, the Jacobite Rising begins in Scotland, looking to push their way down through England and overthrow George I. However, the English fought back and pushed the troops of the Jacobite rebellion, looking to place a James III on the throne, but the rebellion was finally driven back into Scotland and crushed in 1719, and George I retained the throne, and so there was never a James III, but it did come fairly close at some points. Now back in London at Parliament in 1717, King George I expelled one of the members of Parliament. So here a personal, choice there from him to expel, and the person he expelled was none other than Townshend, a close friend and relation to Robert Walpole, and in outrage, Robert Walpole resigned from Parliament and left politics that year of 1717. Now also happening in 1717, George I had a big sort of parade down the Thames, as we can see here, right through central London. There is a big boat parade along the Thames, and what's more is the music that was played from the boat in front of George was actually commissioned by George I himself by personal request. Now it is worth mentioning one thing: George I had a very, very strong, passionate hatred for his son, Prince George, who would later be George II. There was a very, very bad relation between the two, and so for this reason, George I barred him from the power of regency when George I was away, and this hatred led to a new law where a member of the royal family cannot marry without approval from the monarch, still today. Now the South Sea Company was one of the biggest and most important companies at the time, and many people invested in it. It was so important, George I was in charge, and it even featured SSC there on the shillings of the time for this company. But as we can see, around here in 1720, the stock market absolutely nosedived and just sort of jumped off a cliff, causing massive losses for investors, and many, many people, lots of the rich people as well, who had invested a lot into it, lost almost everything they had and were put into poverty. This is known as the South Sea bubble popping or exploding. Now then, Robert Walpole returned to Parliament in 1721 and was appointed as the effective first Prime Minister. And he, as you may know, he is regarded as Britain's first Prime Minister from 1721 when he returned, and was of course appointed and was under George I. Now then, George I returned to Hanover on official business as he had done during a few years of his reign, but he actually died there in Hanover on the 11th of June 1727. So he passed away in where he was born in Hanover at the age of 67 years old. And he had ruled for just under 13 years as the King of England. So not a massive reign, but not a terribly short one. He was succeeded by his son, George II, who became George II after his father's passing. And so there we go. Comment down below any extra facts you have on King George I. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon for some more coins in the future on Bits and Bobs. Bye for now.